Again, a very warm welcome to all of you to the BuildTech Asia Digital Series, the webinar on Now and Beyond, co-organized by BuildTech Asia and Society of Interior Designers Singapore. I have on hand four very interesting, personalities, each of them champion in their fields, contributing much to the interior design industry. And today's purpose is to share with the audience and the industry at large, our challenges and what we need to do and how we go about doing this. There are several questions that I'm going to put to the panel, and any one of you could jump in and ask the questions, answer the questions. I'm sorry, but however, before we start, I would like to at least just for our information, run a poll. Can you please run the first poll question? If all of you can just answer that, it'll give us a better feel for the audience makeup that is listening to us, and then we can respond accordingly. All right. So the first question is, what industry or sector are you from? Construction, meaning ID, architect, engineer, developer, etc. Building materials and technology, because you are in the BuildTech show. Interior finishers, equipment, or just others? We'll give you a little time, maybe 20-30 seconds to just respond, and then I will announce the results of the polls. Okay, so we say, I think we can end the poll and see what the results are. Okay, so I have construction, ID, architect, engineer, developer at 65%, building materials at 12, interior guys at 6, and then others at about 18. Interesting. So I think we have the right audience in front of us, and we will launch straight into the questions, please. Okay, the first question I have for the panel today is, how has the current COVID-19 pandemic affected your business and your work/company setup? Anybody wants to give it the first try? Somebody? One of the panelists? Can I have one of you kind of respond to this question, and then we'll get more feedback from all the other panelists as well. Perhaps Keat, I can start off with you.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I'll just go ahead first. Okay, I think before and after, or rather not after, in fact, now it's still during the new normal period. So before that, I think I wouldn't even be in Singapore at this point of time. I'll be flying around in different cities, but life has changed a lot since the pandemic happened, and new normal has surely affected, if not everyone, but most of us at least. And I'm one of those that were affected, because before that, I was running multiple studios, and studios are still running, but just that projects have to be run on a remote control sense. But I think if you guys, most of us are from the built environment industry, if you're not there, then things are always very different in terms of not just the design stage or the management stage, but also in terms of the marketing and the economic side of things. Yeah, so at this point, I have another 3 offices in China in different cities, projects that were pre-pandemic confirmed, projects that were confirmed pre-pandemic times. They are still running because some of them are institutional projects, so it's too big to stop, but at the crawling pace initially, but it's picking up but at least now we are still feeling the pressure of me not being there as the lead designer. And of course, I think people do understand, client do understand that there are this predicament for the traveling issues. Yeah, and I think, but what we have lost, I know, is the things that have not happened, which is potential projects. So these are things that are escaping without our actual knowledge. So I think that's the only sad part. And of course, this is what has affected me. I think maybe I leave the time for rest of the panelists.
Okay, thank you, Keat. Can I invite any one of the other three to respond? Maybe Nick, how about you? Would you like to jump in here?
Yeah, okay. I mean, for me, a lot of things haven't changed. I run a small company, and I work from a studio at home, so nothing really changed very much. But the only things, the worst thing, obviously, is the projects stop. So there's no revenue coming in from, because our fees are related to the construction program, right? So in Singapore, our projects all stopped. So that's the main thing. New projects, there's limited opportunities, but there are opportunities. Just from an assistance, so that's the main thing, really. The main thing is that the projects have stopped. So we have to look around and see what the future holds for us. Yeah.
Thank you, Nick. Maybe I can jump straight to Peter. Peter, are you there? Could you please share?
Yeah. So so basically the pandemic has actually brought me in a very strange way closer to my team members working together with me, because this is the time where I started to see how the environment has changed. In a way, the typology of spaces has also been changed. I started to see that houses has become almost like hybrid spaces where dining table has become worktops, and there's a lot of versatility in terms of spaces, but yet we still want to achieve the sense of beautiness despite all these changes. And this has actually very strange in this pandemic allowed me to start to reflect on this and see spaces in a very different way by being very close to the home, very close to the workspace, almost in a very beautiful blessing that I see. Yes.
Thank you, Peter. That was nice. Yes, it's a very different way of looking at things, right? Ching Yu, maybe you can chime in a little bit on how this pandemic is affecting you.
Yeah. Firstly, I need to apologize that I have to call from outside, and I have a good reason why, because I'm actually just finished a site meeting, and this project was delayed 7 months due to the pandemic. So definitely I'm affected greatly by the pandemic. It has caused delay to local projects and put a halt to my overseas projects as well. I have, in fact, 3 flagship stores in China, 3 different cities, all put on hold until I can travel. So that's how it has affected me in a negative way. But on a positive note, it opens up a new opportunity for me to work differently. In fact, during the circuit breaker, I managed to close a few deals without even meeting the client in person. So I guess that's a good thing that had happened, because clients actually put faith in us. So, well, I guess we have to embrace changes. That's the most important thing that I've learned.
Okay. Thank you. One of the second part of the question was kind of like, okay, it has affected your business. Any of you, are kind of, faced with the situation where you have to downsize or retrain your people to do more? Is that something that's in the pipeline? Maybe Ching, you could respond first, and then I can go to Peter, because I know Nick is the studio and he's outsourcing most of his stuff. So I'll come to that in a minute.
Well, I think that's a good question. For our office, we did not plan for any downsizing, but at this point of time, we are also not hiring. And I think because the situation is rather uncertain, we are managing with our current workforce, and hopefully by end of this year or early next year, we will have a better outlook and we can decide from there again.
Thank you. I think, yes, it's to stay positive and, build on the team. And I think, we will go for, much better times. Peter, what about you? Any effect on your studio?
I think no, it's all about understand that staff start to work in a very different ways of, different methodology of working in terms of being independence and taking the leads in project, but more and more believe in themselves, which I think is actually very important. The confidence that they build among themselves because of the COVID-19 situation. I see the kind of independence and maturity that's happening in area of my staff, which pleases me in a way. So I think it's all about reprogramming to deal with this current situation and about spreading workload as well. Yeah.
Wonderful. And next, I'll probably go back to Nick. And Nick and I, we talk often. We are in the industry veterans, so but he has a very different way of doing things. So Nick, maybe you can share how you have managed, being a studio office, and how you work with your colleagues overseas.
Okay, so basically we have teams of people that support us from overseas, and obviously they are all facing their own challenges, right? Their offices might be closed, or they may not have the access to the internet that they would normally have, or something. There may be issues there. But I think one of the interesting facts is that because of the way I work, in other words, I don't have a permanent team based in Singapore, right? It makes me view my potential client base in a much more global way. So, I think a lot of people have experienced that they don't necessarily have to meet the client face to face or meet the project team face to face to get the work done. So then it sort of opens up your eyes as to where can your potential projects be. So if you're a design consultant, if you're not building stuff, right, if you're just designing things, actually my clients can be anywhere. My project can be anywhere. My project can be in Mexico City. It doesn't matter, right? So the question is, how do we reach out? How do we take on a much more global mindset and look to deliver our services, look to provide our services anywhere in the world? And my question to Singaporean designers would be, how ready are we as a design nation, right, to take on those challenges, right? It's not really about whether we want to work in Vietnam or Cambodia or Indonesia or within the region, right? There's no reason at all why we can't be designing projects anywhere in the world. And if we've got a strong enough system and a strong enough culture, then we can do that. Yeah.
Sure.
But that's what's different about my business.
All right, wonderful. Thanks, Nick, because now you see, ladies and gentlemen, you can see there's very different ways people are working, and accommodating to the current situation. Let's just jump to the next question, because I think we are pressed for time a little bit, and let's just quickly get on to the next question. The question I'm going to put up to the panelists again is: have you gotten any form of assistance? If yes, please share with us where and who and how. If no, then how are you coping? I'm referring to help in terms of finances here. because I think everybody and every company is going through a tough time. So I think maybe it would be good to just share with you know, if you have found help, how it is, and you know, the positive spin on that, and if you have not, you know, what is your take on that, and how are you going to plan to survive, you know, for the, you know, the medium to long run. Keat, maybe I go back to you.
Okay. Yeah, okay, for this question, right, I may have to put on the other hat, not as a practitioner, not as a company owner, but as the president for SIDS. Okay, SIDS is the national body for interior designers and interior design firms in Singapore. So, in fact, since the pandemic started, we have initiated quite a few programs to garner the support for our interior design fraternity. And of course, I think to start with, as a society, first thing is there have always has been complaints and things like that, that you know, it's too expensive and everything, you know, in terms of membership fee. So we have done unprecedented, as per the pandemic, unprecedented move to waive away with the membership charges for members to come in for this period. Because we know times are difficult and we are not expecting to benefit from this. In fact, we want interior designers to come in to rally for what you think is missing for our industry, so that we can actually project this as a common voice, either to the government or to the market forces to help each other. And in fact, these few months has been great. We have members coming forth to ask for certain help, and in fact, the society has acted as a matchmaker of sort, you know, to kind of link up some companies in terms of collaborations, in terms of contacts, and so on. So we want this to be the community to get everyone together, because I believe most of us are all facing some sort of difficulties, and in fact, what we need is a lot of context and a lot of information that you have not had. So this community, in fact, is very vibrant now. So everyone is helping each other to a certain extent. And we want this to be the common pool. And of course, I think we are projecting a lot of new activities coming up, including programs. At this point, it's a lot of webinars. And in fact, these are all very informative sources where you can go to either get new solutions or new ideas on how certain things can be done and what's the current situation are and who needs what, you know. So I think this platform is becoming especially important, especially during this pandemic time. And I think myself and the council members, we are all dedicated to help everyone in this industry to tide over this very difficult period. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
Over
you,
to you.
Keat.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Keat. Peter, would you like to, you know, jump in over here if you have anything to share on this question? Peter?
Raj,
Yeah.
maybe someone first, yeah.
Sure, no problems. Let's move to Ching Yu. Ching Yu, have you got any form of assistance? You know, if yes, you know, maybe just share what type of grants or schemes that, you know, you applied for and you successfully were able to get them. If no, how are you coping? You know, tightening your belt, whatever. You know, how you're doing this. You know, I think the idea is to give our audience some inspiration also by, you know, a way of example that, you know, by doing certain things in a certain way, we'll all get through this. Ching Yu, over to you.
Yeah, I think what Keat has mentioned is something very meaningful. I think in times of difficulties, it's important that we all come together and give support to each other. In fact, I have already received referrals from fellow designers in our same trade, because our projects differs. For example, I'm specializing in retail and F&B design, whereas my fellow peers may be focusing in the residential sector. So in fact, we still do have referrals for each other, and I think that's important because we see the need to support each other.
Yeah. So this is a neat help in kind, right? You know, referral and and cross pollination of business and all that. Any type of grants did you apply for? Are you aware of any grants or any government assistance that you applied for and successfully got?
Not at the moment, but I think most of us would have received the solidary budget and the rental relief scheme. That does help a bit, yeah, to offset some costs.
Right. Yeah, like me as well. So I received the the some funding from the government repayment for salaries paid under the job support scheme. So that is one of the good things that our government is always proactive, looking out for businesses, small businesses, SMEs, in a way that they can whatever way they can help. Right. I'm sure we can't help everybody, but we do the best we can. Right. Nick, how about you? You want to add anything to this one? If not, I'll move on to the third question.
Yeah, I can do. There are a couple of things. I'm a PR, right, and I own my own company, and I pay myself as a director. So I think when the original assistance was announced, it didn't include people like myself. And in other words, I couldn't get salary assistance. But actually, the government changed that, right? They recognised that a lot of companies are owned by PRs, right? And they changed that so that we were able to benefit. So that was quite good. So that helped a great deal. But I think one area that the government hasn't really given us enough support in is the fact that projects have been delayed a lot longer than they planned, right? So I mean, I've just agreed to award an extension of time on a project, and it's 179 days, right? So for 179 days, the job stopped, right? So during that time, I can't claim. I can't claim. But yet we only got assistance for 3 months, right? So 3 months is 90 days. So there's a real big shortfall, right? But of course, we're doing other things at the same time. But I mean, basically, you can't invoice, right? So that's one area. So I'm sure other people in other trades have had similar problems too. And then because we're not in the construction, we're not recognized as part of the construction sector per se, right? We wouldn't get the same benefits as somebody that has to go through the BCA channels, which is people in the building trade, right? So we sort of fall in between this stool, which is not been very helpful. The other thing I would say is that it's been quite amusing or quite interesting having everybody back in Singapore that's usually not in Singapore. So we've had a lot of networking with businesses that are generally overseas, like someone like Keat, who's spent a lot of time out of Singapore. And we've met a lot of people over the last couple of months, or the last 6 months, that are generally practicing overseas. And because they're stuck in Singapore, we can talk about overseas projects in a way that generally we couldn't do before. Right? So we've made new contacts in that sense. So there's positive things and negative things to it all. But I think at the end of the day, it'll work out okay, and maybe there will be new opportunities that COVID has created that we didn't see would be there before.
Right. Thanks, Nick. Thanks for that positive note. I think we all need to hunker down a little bit and still find ways to survive, and I think we will. We are resilient people, and we'll find a way out of this. Okay, let me just move to the third question, and then because we'll allow some time for Q&A later on. For each of you, looking ahead, what are your plans and/or resolutions that you or your company has put in place to tide over this period? Is this going to be a short-term thing, or is it going to be a permanent change, if there's any? Would any of you want to jump in and you know, maybe answer this question?
Yeah, I can go first if you like.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of things really. One is that when there's no projects to talk about, you tend to talk to people about what your capabilities are and what their challenges are, right? So when I say people, I mean your clients or people in the industry. And so you quickly learn actually that what people really want is somebody that's very specialized, right? They don't want jack of all trade designers. They want people. I mean, I specialize in healthcare, and people come to me because of my understanding of that sector. You know, other people are in high-end residential, others are in F&B. And I think if you have that expertise, people will come looking for you. But obviously, we need to promote. The second thing is as designers, we have a really broad skill set. So my question is, okay, if somebody isn't going to pay me to design something to build, right? What else can they pay me to do? So how do I productize my services? Are there other things that I do as part of my service that I could carve off and package separately? So I think that's an interesting concept. In other words, you know, do we necessarily have to build things? I mean, why aren't we designing virtual interiors for gaming, for argument's sake? You know, or why can't we be doing something different? Why do we have to think in terms of construction all the time? So yeah, so I'm sure there are other. So when you've got time to think about where to find business, right? You can also think about other areas of business too.
Yeah, that's great. Keat, would you care to comment on this part?
Sure. Okay, I think in terms of company-wise, I have to merge some of my two studios into the other bigger studios. And also I think in terms of job scope, I used to have our own 3D rendering farm. And in fact now, because of the pandemic, we don't see it feasible to continue running. And we have to sub it up in terms of, so I think the keyword to this is collaboration. So there are farms, 3D renderers that are professional and just doing that alone, you know, to support the industry. So previously we are not looking at that because of the quality. I mean, we have been very strict in terms of our protocol and the way we want certain things to do, because our 3D was used not just as a presentation but as a study model as well. So now I just kept an essential group of people to do 3D for sake of you know, starting the model. But in terms of rendering, we will sub it up and collaborate with the 3D farming company. Yeah, so that's one thing. And then but we still keep our essential designers. So the blessing in disguise for me and my company is that my managers are actually foreigners who are actually in their base country. So this pandemic actually doesn't stop any of our operation, but to allow the managers to still carry on what they were doing. So in any sense, if we started off with foreign managers like from Singapore that are stationed in China, then I think this period will be even more difficult for us. Then the other thing that we did in terms of changes is that we also have expanded our sectors. So for the past, our company has been around for about 18 years. So for the past 10 years, we have not really do a lot of residential. So in this pandemic actually let us relook into some of the sectors that we have not really been focusing on, and to expand our typology of businesses. Yeah, so these are the two main things that are affecting our company and the changes that we are making.
Okay, thank you very much. Ching Yu, what about you?
Yeah,
you know, looking ahead, what are your plans? You know,
I think at this crucial moment, the creative thinking really comes in play, because I'm doing projects that I have never ventured into. For example, I'm even designing this AI station that detect not only the temperature scanning, facial recognition. At the same time, it also has the function of contact tracing. It's almost like designing a machine. And of course, it is a very good experience for me to actually learn how to manage my creativity in a different aspect. And I think there will be more of such, I would say, different approach that we have to adapt following the opening of the economy, because I foresee that the projects, the amount of projects will still be quite few, but there are still abundant of designers in the market. In short, I think we have to exercise our creativity a bit and adapt to this new normal.
Thank you, Ching Yu. Peter, would you like to, care to share something, some comments on this particular question?
Yeah, I think now it's the role of a designer. Basically, for my overseas project, I feel that the contractors actually took the role of the designer as well, and that becomes very, very important. Being the fact that I could not travel overseas because of the COVID-19 situation. But basically, it's very interesting where clients, beside contractors, clients are also designers, where they put their design thinking input. And I think this is what design is all about. It's not just of us designer as well. It's the input of the client who has his own thinking, who understand what spaces is all about, their own inner sanctuary, and how contractors, as I mentioned before, could be also giving to be part of the design team together. So I think this COVID-19 has allowed not just me alone, but allowing contractors as well as client, as well as supervisor, coming to work together as team and to actually, help us, not just in terms of the final product, but help us as a team that grows together to achieve a better design at the end of the day. Yeah.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah.
I think that rounds up the questions that we have, and I'm just looking at the time, so we have slightly over 22 minutes. I'm going to jump in and respond to some questions. I'll ask the questions, and then the panelists, perhaps you could answer these questions. There's a question from Fo Yong Pang. Most companies are now struggling with existing job delivery. Moving ahead, how will securing future jobs be like? Would anybody care to, address this question? Do we have an answer for Mr. Pang? The question again was, most companies are now struggling with existing, delivering existing jobs. So as we go ahead, how do we secure future jobs, and what would it be like?
Yeah, so I'll give you some thoughts on that. So the government is very keen to see us move away from a very manual construction sector, right? They want things automated. They want us to modernize and develop a whole new way of delivering projects. So I think, I'm sure whether it's driven by government legislation or something else, I'm sure you'll see changes. So perhaps you won't be able to deliver projects in the same way as you do now. Things will have to change. Maybe there's much more use of manufactured manufactured items in projects rather than everything being custom built.
All right, thank you, Nick. Keat or Ching Yu, you want to kind of address this?
In fact, I think this is a very good but difficult question as well. I think for the moment, right, this is the period that is the toughest for all of us, because before the pandemic, in fact, Singapore is a very small nation. We have been also encouraging a lot of interior design or interior design firms to go out of Singapore to really affect the region and to reach out to a much bigger market in our whole Asian ecosystem. But with the pandemic, I think everything got shut down. So now it started off with the travel industry, the airline industry, and then eventually you're going to start. In fact, it already started to affect all the other industries, so including the interior design industry as well. So the thing is, but we are not stopping what we have been doing. So in fact, before, from a society point of view, we have been sending people out physically, you know, as speakers, as interior design representation, you know, to different countries and to kind of present their work and to reach out. So at this point that we can't travel, so what do we do? So we are in fact doing it via digital format. So we started off collaborating to collaborative webinars with our India. We're going to carry on with Taiwan, China, Japan, Korea, Philippines, and Thailand, and so on. So in that way, I think we are hoping to reintroduce our talents, you know, to the foreign countries, and at the same time, I think likewise they are doing a reciprocal action by having a webinar. But of course, I think these are not magic pills that will solve all the problems, but at least this is a formative time for us to rebuild the kind of reputation to a market that traditionally we may not be able to reach. So I think that's the silver lining on it. In fact, now that we can speak across the world without actually flying there, and then we don't have to fly a very expensive person from the other side of the globe to Singapore to be able to present himself or herself to a local community. So I think with that, digital age has helped us a lot, you know, with this pandemic. If this pandemic were to happen 100 years ago, I think we would be almost doomed. So I think we are lucky to a certain extent still. So in fact, tight through this difficult period, continue to market what you have. I think the thing is to persevere on and not give up on what we have been doing. So I think the time that we can reach out will be very, very soon. Yeah. So just hang on to and continue to market and don't stop, you know, not because we can't travel, everything just stop there. Nothing stops. In fact, in business, if you stop, that's it. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Keat. I think we'll jump on to the next question because I think we are getting the audience coming in on some questions. The next question was, what are your thoughts on the phrase? There's a common phrase that we always use, right? A jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one, right? I think we have this always, people say that either you are a generalist or a specialist. It applies to the medical profession, it applies to the law profession, it applies to our design profession. So the second part of the question is, as the first half of the phrase is commonly used to support a specialist perspective instead of an all-rounder perspective. So what are our thoughts on this one? And I think to a certain extent, Nick had also addressed this. And if any of you want to just jump in here and help me out on this question, if not, I will try to attempt it. Nick, what are your thoughts on jack of all trades, but is a master of none? But sometimes better than a master of one.
Yeah, the medical example is a great example. So you go, so you've got a fever, right? So you go and see a GP, and he has a look at you, and he refers you to a specialist because maybe it's something more serious. I mean, if he suspects it's something more serious, right? And he doesn't have the latest technology, the latest drugs, the latest treatments. He maybe doesn't know what's happened, what the latest developments are in that area. He'll send you to a specialist, and off you go, right? You wouldn't trust the generalist with taking care of your cancer treatment or your heart disease or something. You go and see somebody that really knows what they're talking about. And because this person knows what he's talking about or she's talking about, you build trust very, very quickly, right? They can bring ideas to you and solutions to you that as a client that you would never think of. And this person, you know, your clients are smart. They're talking to people in their industries all the time, and they don't want to be talking to a designer that doesn't know their business and doesn't know the challenges that they face, right? They want the designer to be a partner of that. So, yeah, I mean, to be a jack of all trades is maybe in construction can be okay, but as a designer, I think it's self-defeating. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, again, addressing the point about, you know, the medical profession, and we are likening it to our design profession. To me, the way I see a GP is that, you know, he's not really a jack of all trades, because he doesn't specialize in multiple specialties, right? He's not that. He's a generalist, because what he will do is he will be better able to kind of second guess what may be, and if it's a minor enough thing, then send you on your way without you having to incur additional costs by going to a specialist, and without frightening you into thinking that you have something more serious than just a common cold or fever. So I think there's always a place for a jack of one trade. Actually, a generalist is usually a one trade person. Very few people are jack of all trades. You won't have an orthopedic surgeon who can also do heart surgery or do cancer treatment. So in that sense, both are needed. The generalist is needed, and the specialist is also needed. That's my take on this. All right. I think there's one more question. Let me just go and see whether. Okay, there was one question. Somebody is asking whether we can recommend any bid portal, BID portal. Can we advise? I'm only familiar with things like GBiz. Nick or Keat, Ching, are you familiar with any other portals that interior designers can access to and find work? Maybe Cheng, are you familiar?
I think the best portal is my own networks. Yeah, because I think I would rather spend more time serving my existing clients and make sure that I have recurring businesses than to venture out into portals where likely, that I'm not saying definitely, but likely it's going to be a price war. I think it's important for us as consultants to understand our values and the kind of professional services that we are providing is beyond price war.
Yeah. Thank you. Nick, I know you have done some work through GBiz, you know, and you have your own network, CoreNet and all that. These are not portals, but they are networking circles, right? So
Yeah.
Your take on this?
I think collaboration is the way forwards, really. But maybe this person is asking it from a construction point of view, from providing the construction work. So one of the questions I would put is, if we talk about ID work, right? And I mean, all of us most of us on this panel are producing documentation to put out to bid, right? So the question is, could someone like SIDS become the portal for contractors to bid on the work, right? In other words, as designers, we use our association as a portal to source for contractors and suppliers.
Good idea.
So, you know, so that might be something that. So there's nothing in Singapore like that at the moment. But I mean, if there was enough, I suppose if there was enough money invested in it, then it's something that you could possibly set up, and there would be a reason for being part of the association, in the sense that you could, you would be able to have reliable contractors bid on your work, and be able to recommend those contractors to your clients. Yeah.
Great. So, Keat, I think an idea here, you know, maybe the association can look at that.
Yes. In fact, I think Nick has suggested a very good idea, you know, to come use the association as a melting pot. But in fact, as I mentioned earlier, I think it's already a melting pot for fellow designers and the fellow businesses like suppliers, material suppliers, as well as contractors as well. So I think this is a very big family whereby a lot of information, focused information gets shared and passed along. But I think end of the day, it really falls back to what Ching you mentioned earlier is important because of the network and things like that. It's a very competitive world, and there's a lot of designers around as well, also in the built environment industry, suppliers. So I think end of the day, it's really up to each individual's capability to grasp the opportunity. But of course, I think as a platform, we believe in supporting the community and the industry at large. Yeah, so I think any good suggestion could come from any of our members. In fact, some of the implementation were through members' recommendation and things like that. And I think if it's workable and manpower allows, we definitely will look into it.
Thank you, Keat. I'm keeping an eye on the clock as well. We have another about 8 minutes to go. I don't see any other questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start wrapping up. Any last thoughts for the participants or the audience, as we take our leave? I will start, let's just go in a sequence, Keat, maybe I'll leave you for the last. Maybe I'll start with Peter, Nick, Ching Yu, then maybe Keat. Peter, any last words for our audience who's taken their time to listen to us today? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Ching Yu, can we go back to you first then? I'll leave Keat to the last.
I think I'll just keep it short and sweet. We all have to embrace changes, and we got to come together as one voice, and therefore I think SIDS is the best platform for all IDs to come together.
Thank you, Ching Yu. And Nick?
Yeah, I would say there's obviously when there's a slowdown, such as we're probably going to experience, it's a great opportunity to take stock and think about how we want the industry to look and perform in the future. So, for 15, 20 years, seem to be fighting the same battle and trying to get design to be recognized as a profession. If we can count on people to come and join the association and help us to position that would be great, right? So, but there are other concerns as well, such as sustainability, all these things that we can take on as an association if we've got people to support and the manpower to bite off all these little pieces. So we've, as enthusiasts, we've got to start somewhere. So we start with design. We've got design sorted out. Let's look at the other areas too, but do it through an association that believes in the united body. Yeah.
Thank you, Nick. Peter?
Yeah. I think this COVID-19 has taught me a lot of things. The design is, to me, design is a has to be approached in a very humanitarian way. The design to me is universal, and design to me has to have a legacy, and it will always be. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you. Keat, over to you. Some closing remarks, please.
Yeah, okay. In fact, I always have been telling my designers we are a very special profession. As designers, creativity, in fact, is our superpower. So as a designer, so I think end of the day, up to this point that pandemic is happening, where we have to adapt to new normal, I think that's where creativity has to kick in as well. So I think end of the day is don't despair. Really persevere on with what we are doing and rethink what are the other ways. It's okay to lose a few jobs, it's okay to lose a few staff, but I think as long as we are still here, I think there will be hope, there will be a new opportunity. And in fact, I think silver lining sometimes turn out to be better than the in many sense. So if we think in a positive way, I think let's live on a positive vibe and come join the community where we can all share some stories and possibly even get some solution out of it. Yep.
Okay. At this closing stage, I would like to thank our panelists, Keat, Peter, Ching, Nicholas Merrow-Smith, for being on our panel and sharing their thoughts and their experiences for the benefit of the audience out there who's listening to us, and maybe even, you will tell your friends about all of this. As I think the underlying statement was, we need to come together to get through this, and no better way than to join an association that represents the almost entire interior design industry, and then we can only go from strength to strength. So thank you everyone for joining us. There's going to be a hard stop at 5 p.m. so I don't want to be cut off. I would like to say, stay positive, stay safe, and let's get back to work. Thank you so much.